And we are live in the whiskey world.
Woo!
Bart's had a long day today.
True.
We had to do the phenomenology review. Some of you have watched that already. A lot of good tasty notes put out.
That's it. Yeah. What? I wasn't sure I could hear all of them.
Bart did a live stream in the game board world. He's doing this one, then he's going to have to, we got to make sure this one ends on time. Bart's got to pick up his wife at the airport.
That's right. I am light sipping. There will not be a lot. I'll be well around just a single ounce, and I don't go till very late to pick up.
And hopefully your plane is a little late too. That wouldn't hurt.
Sure. You bet. All good.
Anyway, those tuning in, if you don't know, I'm Scott.
I'm Bart.
And joining us tonight is
Adam Clary from Standard Beverage Corporation.
Adam is with us. He's brought a couple bottles to our attention. Adam is responsible for bringing, if you've seen our review, a Glenrothes Single Cask that he helped pick out just for the state of Kansas.
Good picker. Good picker.
Yeah. This was a 14-year-old cask strength. It was bottled at 56.8%. Sherry bomb of deliciousness. With Adam's role at Standard Beverage, he's also brought in Hazelburn, which we picked up a Hazelburn 13 Oloroso sherry cask. And Bart's got the bottle. We've got a Kilkerran 8-year-old cask strength. All of those Adam has brought into Kansas and into Wichita. He's responsible. He's recently started getting Glengoynes into Kansas, and he's working on Glendronachs.
Hello.
Yep. But we'll give him a chance to talk about all that. Bart, what are we going to do?
We're going to test it.
I think we're going to test it. Adam is in Overland Park, the Kansas City area.
That's correct.
How'd you get into whiskey?
During college, I was working in my family's liquor store, cousin's liquor store in Topeka, Kansas there, and was going to school to be an accountant, and just got to the burnout factor of college and stuff, and really went to spring break down to Baja and came back and decided I didn't want to be an accountant anymore. Loved whiskey, loved spirits, loved beer, everything about the industry, and got to know a lot of the reps and managers and stuff. And in about 2006, I left that family business and went into and joined Standard Beverage Corporation in November of 2006. And really had a passion for craft beer at that time, but was always looking for the next big thing. And I grew up in rural Northeast Kansas, where it was Jim Beam country or wild turkey country. So I got introduced to bourbon essentially at a very young age, pre-21-year-old from there. But I always loved history, and I always loved learning about history and talking about history of brands or just history of the world. And when I found out through a lot of the whiskey is that there was such a great history with a lot of the spirits that were on the shelves, and just started researching everything, and just pretty much just fell in love with everything about whiskey. And at that time, it wasn't really, in mid 2000s, it wasn't global whiskey. It was pretty much, you had, bourbon, and then you had, Irish. There were just a couple at that time. And then, Scotch, it was, single malts were still thriving. Obviously blends are the king here in Kansas, but there wasn't Japanese whiskey. There were some Yamazaki age-stated stuff out there. I wish I would have bought at that time. But there wasn't a lot of the, obviously Kavalan stuff from Taiwan and stuff. So as my career developed through Standard Beverage, I fell in love even more with just all things whiskey, global whiskeys and things like that are coming. So you'll see I've got a tremendous passion for all things whiskey now, especially these when these small suppliers come to me and say, hey, we've got these, only got 2-3 cases. I understand we're Kansas, we're, almost last in consumption rates. We're kind of last and an afterthought, but I'll take any allocated whiskey I can get for our company because it just builds our entire portfolio for that matter. So.
Yeah, and someone's already commented, matter of fact, and we'll talk about it later, but the 3-tier system, in the United States. So maybe we'll get a little bit more insight from you on that.
Sure.
We're going to have to cap this at an hour though, so.
Well, I love what you just said, though, the consumption rates. I was going to ask you where Kansas hits on that, because we have a lot of people that say we get some things here in Wichita that they haven't even seen in some of the other states, but we're almost at the bottom in terms of consumption rates just due to our lower population, obviously.
Yeah, you look at us compared to, I'll use Missouri as a great example. You know, they've got probably just over twice as many people as we do. And if you compare census to census, I think we're losing an average probably 30, 40,000 people between there. They're moving out of the state. Obviously, there are probably a lot of them moving west to Colorado. But so we get overlooked a lot of that. But on some things like the Kilkerran and the Hazelburn and stuff, you know, brands, the stuff love to come to Kansas because, you know, we can show them some love versus other markets that get very saturated with a lot of brands that are out there.
That's a good point.
Yeah, true.
And you got Dummies.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, and also let me even back up a little bit, because the first time we met you, you were in town with Don Sutcliffe and the Exceptional Scotch doing a tasting.
Yeah.
And even beforehand when we were talking, you mentioned Don Sutcliffe. So, and okay, so let's get started then on the Glenrothes, the single cask that you helped pick out. Walk us through that. Go back. I mean, what's involved with picking out a cask from Glenrothes?
So when I was approached at this time, when Glenrothes was a part of Anchor Distilling, or their importing company there, they came to me and knew that we were selecting barrels of Knob Creek, and we were selecting some craft distillery barrels and calling them Kansas editions. And so I was able to me and some coworkers were able to set in on that round table and select barrels. And the idea behind that was that there's all this wonderful juice and all this wonderful whiskey out there that gets sent into accounts, and it's allocated, and these accounts hoard it, they take it home, whatever they do with it. What if we were able to take all this wonderful juice and do our own barrel selection so that everybody in Kansas can have a chance to enjoy that? So Anchor came to me and said, hey, we've got an opportunity for you to do a Glenrothes cask, one of the few single casks that are out there in the United States. This whole process honestly took about a year from when I selected it to when it actually arrived stateside to send out. It was a long, drawn out process, but they had sent me 3 barrel samples. And a lot of times when I get barrel samples from accounts, they're 50 ml. They're small shots of this stuff. So if I want to sample at a round table of say 10 people, really can't do that. These guys were fortunate. They sent me pints of barrels selections from 3 different casks. One in 2003, one in 2001, and one in 1998, where I had to play in the part of price in there too as well. I had to keep that back in my mind because I can't necessarily sell, 500 plus bottles at $175, $200 a bottle. But what I loved about this is I blind tasted them and had somebody pour them and mix them around and put them in front of me and blind tasted them. And I was looking for that traditional space side, but this one really intrigued me because the vibrant, just this tremendous amount of sherry, like dried figs, it almost reminded me of walking by. If you got brown sugar that's getting ready to start boiling in a pot, it almost reminded me a lot of that smell and aroma and stuff. And I just fell in love with this whiskey. So then I contacted him, said, here's the barrel selection we had. Didn't know it was going to take another 10 to 12 months to get it here to Kansas. But I think the whiskey in it's phenomenal. I did see a couple other casks there's one in like Australia, which is the next cask number higher than mine. I saw another one on the East Coast here recently. But yeah, for $75.99 for 14-year-old malt is insane pricing.
That is phenomenal. Well done.
A 14-year-old single cask at 56%. So,
and again, like you guys mentioned before, like I'll say it again, I think this is the closest to me from the old Macallan Cask Strength that was there. And I loved that one before it went away. And now it's back I think it's called Classic Cut is the new release of that, limited release. But this is this is real close to what it tasted like back then.
Delicious.
Well, and you had gotten us, or the bottle that you gave us, you had used in a couple of tastings and you'd sent some samples out from. I think it was about 3/4 full. But as soon as I tasted it and me and Bart shot the review, I ran out. I bought my own bottle, so I've got a spare here of it. But yeah, then like I say, the 14-year, when you look at the Macallan Classic Cut, there's a Glengoyne Cask Strength on the market. those are 8 to 10 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And right at the same price point, or maybe even a little bit higher.
Yeah. And that's what, when I looked at what the 2001 version be, and then obviously the 1998, I really wanted to do that 1998 version, but it was going to tip the scale over $200, and there's no way Kansas could move bottles of it. But this is obviously, again, it's something that separates ourselves from our competition, is doing barrel selections like this. There's nobody else out there in Kansas that are doing single cask, releases of single malt whiskeys. So yeah, this, every time after I let this sit for a good 20 minutes, it gets even better sip by sip.
It's so rich. I just took a little sip, but just great dark sherry notes, chocolates, and the figs, the prunes, the grapes.
And one thing that came to mind too is I always try to find whiskeys that are like an after dinner whiskey, dessert whiskeys, or whatever you want to call them, set around on a patio or whatever, or holiday time whiskeys where you want after a big meal, or with cigars or something like that. And this to me is an after dinner dessert drink because of the richness and the chocolate flavors that you get from this whiskey.
Absolutely agreed. And in fact, I've added 3 drops of water to mine, or 3 even splashes, and it's still high up there, ABV wise. Bart, what do you think?
Love it. Great job. Now, you may not be able to tell us, have you been sampling anything else where you're going to be able to do a similar acquisition?
Not with Scotch. Still got some cases of this to move through, and I don't think upper management would be too happy with me if we brought on another one with this amount of inventory. I do have I can say it now because it is on its way. I did a Wathins single barrel, but barrel proof. There was only 25 available barrels throughout the entire United States. Somebody didn't want theirs. We went on the initial allocation, and they asked me if I wanted it. So it's going to be 114.6 proof bourbon that should, fingers crossed, arrive right here before Christmas. It's going to be closer to that mid-60s price point, but again, super limited stuff that they allowed me to be a part of that one. We've got numerous Knob Creek single barrels. We're right now Knob Creek sending out some 13 to 14-year-old juice for their single barrel program at 120 proof, which we recently had a barrel selection that came to Kansas that it was actually put into the barrel when Booker No was still alive. So he passed away February 24th, 2004. This was from January 2004. So this is kind of to me, it's a historic barrel because I'm a big fan of the Beam family and everything they do. So it's part of that one. And then there's probably 2 to 3 more that I can't say yet until it's actually registered, and I don't want to tip my hat to some of the competition if they're watching this to see what we've got going on. But I've working on one out of a distillery in Seattle, which you probably know which single malt distillery that is in Seattle, one of my absolute favorites.
Rhymes with Petland.
Absolutely. I was there last fall and just obviously fell in love with everything they do up there.
Now, we did have a question come in from Claire, and he wants to know, I think it was Claire, either Claire or Travis now. Wanted to know if this was Oloroso sherry, and that would be my guess.
Yeah, it's all Oloroso sherry.
Yeah, I mean, it's very rich, very, very thick, very chewy, just delicious.
Which I love, what sherry provides with the richness too. But it also gives it that long, drawn-out, dry finish at the end that just keeps going and keeps going. I mean, this thing goes forever on the finish.
Really no sourness to it. Roasted almonds are in there. With some Oloroso sherry, sometimes you get a sourness, kind of a tartness. I don't get any sourness at all with it. Which I think they say usually indicates good sherry barrels.
Yeah, that's what I like. Some people like a little bit of that sour finish, but yeah, I like it sweeter in. Have you seen more at, do we have more of this at Auburn, Scott? Have you seen it there?
Yeah, they still have a bottle or two there. That's where I picked up my spare.
Excellent.
Yeah, and we still have a decent amount of cases, so we should have it in our inventory, I'd say, over the next probably 4 to 5 months, being able to ship out to accounts.
Cool. All right, Scott, do you want to move to the Hazelburn, or do you want to go over to the Kilkerran?
Let's do Kilkerran 8 next. Do you think, Adam, is a little lighter? It's not. Then we'll move on to that 13 Hazelburn.
Yeah, that's a great one to move on to.
Okay. Coming in, we're going to go real light, real light. By the way, I am filling my glass with water in here. So if somebody sees sipping more, it's actually just water.
Sure.
Drink responsibly.
Me too. It's just water.
Well, you're not driving anywhere. You're sitting. Normally, I'm sitting too. That's the great thing about the remote in. We're not driving anywhere.
Now we've got Malted Man Cave is watching. That's Keith. He's another reviewer on YouTube, Adam. But he just picked up the Kilkerran 8 cask strength. He had asked, he goes, is the Kilkerran 8 any good? And I told him, yeah. So he picked it up, and he just texted me today and said that I understated it.
I knew it was going to be good, and today was the first day I actually got to try it. But based on the Kilkerran 12 that I had when I initially got the bottles, when I got my allocation, they asked me if I wanted the 8-year cask strength. I was like, you don't even have to ask me that. Just send the stuff registered and send it, because I'll take it and we'll sell it. It was only a handful of cases. But just a beautiful, beautiful story with the brand, and the whiskey's very interesting. And that's what I love about Campbellton whiskey. They're super interesting and complex, and just it's becoming my favorite region, even though there's only 3 distilleries there. The whiskey out of there is becoming some of my favorite. And hopefully Don Sutcliffe doesn't hear me say that, but I always tell him that my favorite whiskey is his stuff. But
you said some of your favorite whiskey.
Yeah. Great opener on the flavor. I sipped at it. I get like a saddle leather, like a rich saddle leather on the taste.
I forget, what's our ABV on this, Bart? Or Adam, either one?
112.4.
Let's see, 56.2.
Okay. And this is just no wine cask finishing on this. This is strictly ex-bourbon barrels, I believe.
Yeah. On this release, this one's just strictly ex-bourbon. Now on the 12-year, they do 70% bourbon, 30% sherry. And what's great about Kilkerran is this is all natural. This is all the real coloring. There's no color caramel added to it. It's non-chill filtered. But they make a lighter style. That's what they were going for with the reflux and with the stills. And so they're able to make a lighter style whiskey that, to me, is very vibrant. And that's what I love about the 8 and the 12 is these whiskeys from the nose to just the mouthfeel is just super vibrant whiskeys that they make.
Yeah, outside of kind of the grassiness, grass,
crisp, clean,
vanillas.
There's a touch of peat involved with these. Not a lot, not like you would see with actually like the Springbank, or even more so with the Long Row series from Springbank, which this obviously is from Glengyle Distillery, which was when Campbellton was thriving, late 1800s. There was over 30 some distilleries in that small region, all the way to this Glengyle Distillery went out of business in 1925, and the family from Springbank purchased the distillery back in 2000, and in 2004 it took them 4 years to get everything in place, stills and everything like that, and then started to at that point make whiskey again. And so they started doing what's called the Work in Progress series, where they're releasing a 5-year-old malt, a 6-year-old malt, a 7-year malt, went like age progression stuff, and until they got to where they started last year, they released a 12-year-old from there. But one cool thing about it, to be considered a Campbellton region, that people, the Scotch regulations, that you had to have 3 or more distilleries in your region to be classified that. So when they opened this, and obviously started in 2004, Campbellton became a real region again with the Scotch whiskey rules and stuff. So and like I said, I fell in love with Springbank early on in my career. That's the one that really got me into single malt Scotch. A love for that is Springbank.
What do you have on the taste, Scott?
It was very strong, very rich, grassiness, maltiness, vanilla, oak,
Yeah, on my last sip, I did not pick up that saddle leather, but my very first sip, I've got my dad's best friend would actually build saddles from scratch, and it took me right to his shop.
Well, and I'm hoping to get the peat, just that faint level of peat. And even Keith had said that in one of his comments earlier today that there was a peat in there. And I don't get it. I haven't got it yet. Bart, do you? Bart's palate does not get
faint
subtle peat.
Yeah, my palate, it's got to be like punching me in the nose repeatedly. It's like The Punisher on Netflix is what I've got to experience.
Yeah. And this is a line that I'm going to use for people that want to get into drinking peated whiskey. To me, can be considered a transitional whiskey to get them into that peat category. Obviously, I'm not going to start them with Ardbeg or Lafroig or Lagavulin, but if I can start them at Kilkerran, and get them into, walk them up the line from Highland Park to Talisker to Benriach, all the other stuff. Once they're in that category, they're never leaving that category. Peated whiskey. Sure.
Yep, I agree 100%. I love Talisker 10 right off the bat. And when I first started my first tasting, I'd had a Lagavulin 16, which I absolutely love. And it was too much peat for me at my very first tasting. And now it's like Octomore. Bring it on. Bring it on.
Yeah. I'm not even sure what release of Octomore we're on right now. We get them in. We get a couple cases in, and they sell out pretty fast. There's a big cult following for Octomore that's just waiting for the next release. And I didn't get a chance to buy it. Now it goes out so fast.
Yeah. Is it the 8.3, Scott?
Well, I know there's the 8.1 and the 8.3, but we haven't seen either one here. So,
yeah, the first time I had 6.1 and tasted, I was waiting for this just blown away peat like campfire, but I was like, no. This was like creme brulee, it was a natural warming feeling to it that just didn't blow me away like a heavily peated, with a short run of peat, but they fire it pretty quick. This is a longer run of peat, so they do it low and slow over a long time. So it's not like intense in your face smoke to it. But I fell in love with Octomore because if it's 10 degrees and a foot of snow outside, I would love to have a glass of Octomore just for the warming sensation.
The 7.3, I think, is the one that really
6.3.
Sorry, 6.3 I caught fire with.
Yeah.
We had
the 6.1, and it was good, but we didn't really feel like it was justified the price. But then so we were kind of hesitant and stuff. In fact, his triple cap is in here commenting. He had sent us samples of the 6.3.
Thank you.
Yeah, which totally blew 6.1 out.
I think 6.3 was the one. I think it was 258 ppm.
Yeah. Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, and because I wouldn't have bought another one after the 6.1. I was it kind of the 6.1 was a little bit of a letdown for me, and then 6.3 was unbelievable, and then they've been getting better since.
Which is an interesting point that we're talking about Brooklotti, because they're big about terroir, like flavor of their barley. Same thing with Campbellton now, especially Kilkerran, is the flavor of the barley in the area of Campbellton picks up some of the microclimate that's there, so it comes through in the barley. These guys, where they're not buying their malted barley from centralized malting floors, this is actually stuff that they do from start to finish. Which it's Springbank does it as well. So very few distilleries actually do that. Most buy from a centralized malting floor.
Yeah, interesting. Great. That's wonderful information.
Travis is asking a real quick question, Adam. Have you heard anything on the new Macallan exceptional single casks being released in the States?
Yeah, those are on their way to Kansas as we speak. I was just looking at the purchase order we have in. These are one bottle cases. We don't have a whole lot coming to Kansas, I know. So other states, obviously, they're going to be arriving here anytime. They're not inexpensive. I didn't think the price is somewhere. Some of these I've looked were $300-400 bottles, which I think it's kind of funny that they actually use Macallan exceptional casks. And Don Sutcliffe was the guy who introduced, Macallan to the United States in '83, and he's got the exceptional whiskey. So I'm interested to hear his thoughts on the name of that particular lineup.
That is interesting. How many, by the way, with Don, how many tastings did you go to with him? Was it multiples, or did we just get lucky and catch you at the one?
That one there. So we did. I don't remember what day that was. It was a Monday, I think. So we did Wichita for that one, that one had the most whiskey there because we were fortunate enough to have, comparisons of first release versus second release. That one, which was a very interesting tasting. And then we did one in Manhattan after that. And that was a really interesting tasting too. We had probably 50, 60 people at that one in Manhattan for it. And then we did another one in Kansas City after that. That was his first go around. And then he came back and we did the exact same thing the second time around. And we did another one in Wichita, and then we did another one in Manhattan, another one in Lawrence. We did a dinner at Hank Charcuterie in Lawrence there. So I know he's itching to come back to Kansas again. Every time he comes here, he's obviously well received, and love listening, learning whiskey from him, and just hearing the stories that he has from the guy that's obviously been in the industry for quite some time. But that tasting we did at Scotch and Sirloin, I've never been a part of one like that before, to compare different releases, especially for a small brand like that.
Yeah, that was neat. Let us know if once he confirms some dates.
Yep.
We'll even help put out the word.
Now let's see if we. You mentioned in Campbelltown, there's 3 distilleries: Springbank, Glengyle, which is releasing the Kilkerran.
Yep.
And the 3rd distillery,
Glen Scotia. Yep, which is on its way to Kansas too. It's actually registered here. It was coming through one of my smaller suppliers, but Stoli Group, which is their now the Stoli Vodka, they went out on their own as far as importing and buying brands. They actually purchased that, so they're bringing in the Glen Scotia line sooner than later. So it'll be here pretty quick with the 15-year and some of the other malt releases they have as well. So. Our company, Standard Beverage Corporation, once that comes in, we'll actually officially own we'll own all of Campbellton at that point. All 3 distilleries we'll have just in our portfolio here in Kansas. So I guess if we're going to own one, we'll own Campbellton at that point.
There you go. Good.
Now we did get a call, or I got a call, it was a few weeks ago from Auburn, because they had a chance, and I'll know it's a Springbank, but it was a 20-year single cask ex-bourbon.
Yep, that was the 1997 ex-bourbon 20-year. I got 2 cases of that for the state, and it was gone pretty fast. They actually shipped me 1 case of the 21-year. I can get obviously 18-year, get enough of that one, and then I've got a 15-year on its way, which is going to be 3 cases total for that one. But it's going to be super interesting for there. So
I know I've heard real good things about the 15-year.
Yeah, and that's a brand that we've always had in house. Just nobody's ever paid attention to it. And when I came into this new position I have, I was like, man, we've got to try to get the rest of the Springbank line, because this is what the Scotch geeks out there love. They love that Springbank stuff. They're into the Campbellton whiskeys because they're very interesting whiskeys, as you can see when you taste the Kilkerran. And then when we get to the Hazelburn, they really make you think about what you're tasting.
Interesting.
And the Kilkerran 8, I think it's 78, or no, it's a little bit higher. It's about $100 price range, though, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a little bit more than the 12-year. Just facts the cask strength on it, and the availability isn't as much as the 12-year.
Bartow, here, let me click on you, and you can show it.
All right, we just got her coming in there, just so they can see it and recognize it.
Yeah, I've got like 2 cases, so 12 bottles left of my allocation, and those will pretty much be gone by the end of the year.
Yeah, especially once word gets out. We haven't got our review of that one up yet, so we need to.
Yeah.
Well, that one's high on the list to get posted. The Hazelburn 13-year here is high on the list to get posted. We got a Lagavulin 12. The 2017 distilled edition.
Yeah, we've got a backlog. I mean, we've got some of those that first blended from Scotch Malt Whiskey Society.
Oh yeah.
Good. Are you? Well, you're still sipping on yours. I don't want to push you into the Hazelburn.
That's fine. We can get moving because we got a few topics. We can touch on the Hazelburn 13, and then we need to get into the 3-tiered system of the United States with Adam.
You bet.
And we also need to talk about all these pictures he takes with the Kansas City Royals.
Good to be Adam.
So this one you brought in as well. So now this is Hazelburn, which is a sister distillery of Springbank. 13-year Oloroso cask matured. 47.1%. Now I got to tell you, even the Springbanks and this Hazelburn, they need better labels. These are so cheap looking.
I'll pass that along to those people.
Yeah, exactly.
You've been spoiled by Compass Box and the works of art.
Well, with Hazelburn, I love Irish whiskey. I love the fact that it's getting people into the whiskey category because they're triple distilled for the most part and they're lighter styles. So Hazelburn being made at the Springbank Distillery, they've got their 3 types of stills and they're able to do triple distillation like the Irish would do. Whereas Springbank and Longrose, 1.5, 2 times distilled, they make a lighter style for this Hazelburn style, which is non-peated. So this spends 13 years minimum in 100% Oloroso sherry cask, first fill, and then they'll remove it and add some refresh, like second fill, third fill sherry cask to it as well. 12,000 bottles produced of this one, this release. And they always do their Hazelburn allocated release in the fall, so that's why we're able to get on the tail end of this one as well. But I know you love sherried whiskey, and this one isn't as sherry bomb as the Glenrothes to me. It's a lighter style sherry, but again, still very interesting and wonderful stuff.
Well, and I forget who I was talking to, and it might have been Rainier out at Plaza. And he was saying it's because of some of the types of the Oloroso sherry casks that they used in this are more kind of almost more premium Oloroso sherry cask, and it's brought in. I've even got there's some different notes with this Oloroso sherry that I haven't gotten in other sherry whiskeys.
I agree.
I'll try to find my notes here for it.
I have a hard time pinning down the nose on this one too. It's a very unique nose. Did you find your notes on it, Scott?
Yep, I got them up. Definitely, man. Almonds just blowing right out of the glass at you. And I must have spent some time with this because I've got that you need to, or this as this sits, as it airs, it really opens up and even becomes more fruity. I've got, of course, nuts, hazelnuts, a flaky pie crust,
right?
Burnt caramel, tapioca. That one might have took me a while to come up with.
Yeah, I bet. The flaky pie crust is right on. It's that dry, not quite bread, but you've got it. The pie crust. Wow, now I need some tapioca. I'm wondering if I'm missing it.
I got sweet buttercream, the dark fruits, cigar tobacco. I got a lot of notes on this. This I really sat down and spent some time with.
Yeah, I really like the nose here. It's a unique, different approach.
Yeah, some of the releases that were before this one, I'm trying to get my hands on. They did a Barolo cask. They've done I believe it was an Australian Pinot Noir cask as well. So they're obviously experimenting with a lot of wine casks that I think are going to be, if I get my hands on some of these bottles, it's going to be, I can't wait for that day to try these. I'm just amazed by the quality of this Hazelburn. I can't wait for the next allocation of the new stuff.
Yeah, I've got, I'm going to add my drop of water, but in my notes, when I added my water, I've got leather, more sherry comes out, tobacco, cream, and Heath bar, the toffee and the chocolate combined.
Oh, I definitely get the chocolate, the milk chocolatiness.
This is definitely one that just it's unique, it's different. You can spend some time with this one and really get to know it.
Yeah, unfortunately, there's only we only got, I think it was 3 cases for the state, so 18 bottles made it to Kansas. So and I would go get one sooner than later.
Wow.
And again, though, I think same price range as the Kilkerran 8 was. I think this one was 105, maybe 110, somewhere in that range.
Yeah.
On the finish, I get a little bit of a tropical fruit on there as well.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah, this is a good noser. I'm with you. This is different. We got any other comments rolling in?
They are rolling right on, flying right by.
All right.
We did have a question up a while from the Whiskey Scout. Was asking if Adam knows anything about, let me see if I can find it, St. George Baller.
Yeah, I've read a lot about it and heard a lot about it from other people that are in California, obviously out in that area, particularly some people that I know right there in that Alameda Bay area there. We used to have St. George as one of our brands with their single malt. This was 2004, 2005, 2006, about the time that they were making Hangar One vodka with craft distillers there. Well before their time as far as craft whiskey here in the United States. But I mean, obviously, it's something that I've read recently that's obviously collectible bottles, because there are craft whiskeys out there now that you get their inaugural editions and stuff. These things are going to be worth a lot of money if you 10 years or so down the road. Because I mean, obviously, what they do at St. George's with Lance Winters is obviously some phenomenal stuff that they're producing out there. But yeah, I mean, that's all I know from what I've just read and seen online for it. I haven't tasted it or anything yet.
What is your favorite? What's your genre of whiskey? What's your favorite?
It's bourbon. I grew up with bourbon. 3 generations ago for me is from the Lexington, Kentucky area, so maybe it's in my blood. I'm not sure, but that's always been my draw, my go-to, pretty much my everyday sipper, as you want to call it. But as now that I get more in depth with my position now, I'm starting to branch out a lot more. I'm not just going and just ordering straight bourbon. I'm actually looking to expand, get away from that area. So I'm really pretty much drawn into the whole, obviously, the world whiskey stuff with stuff that's coming out of Taiwan with Kavalan. And lately, obviously, Japanese. I don't know who's not into Japanese whiskey. For that matter, we've got a pretty big portfolio. And then this New Zealand whiskey collection from Anchor is going to be real interesting. So I've got some stuff coming from New Zealand that's going to be awesome. And then I just got some Swedish single malt sent to me the other day that we're looking to bring into 2018. It's very interesting. So
do not bring in the Santis peated from no.
Nope, it's not that one. But so yeah, it is bourbon. I should say that's a big, probably 90% of what I consume whiskey wise. But it's I think it's starting to get less and less bourbon, particularly because I think right now in the bourbon industry, people are drinking so much of it, and the age statements are being removed, so the whiskey's becoming younger, the flavor's becoming hotter, and the price is going up. So to me, I'm not really drawn towards that. If I'm drinking bourbon, it's going to be a bottle and bond bourbon. I really will go to Kentucky every year just to buy all the bottle and bond bourbon I can to bring back, just to get me through a year of it.
Really?
Yeah. The Heaven Hill White Label, the very old Barton.
The Heaven Hill 6-year bottled in bond that's $12 a bottle.
Absolutely. Yeah,
and that's amazing. That's the best $12 bottle of whiskey. I tell people you won't find a better $12 bottle of whiskey than that Heaven Hill bottled in bond.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. When I started bringing back bottle and bond bourbon a few years ago, we were getting the VOB 6-year. It was for $7-8 a bottle. I was filling up my trunk bringing it back, and then I got introduced to the White Label Heaven Hill. and then the JTS Brown, and then the David Nicholson 1843 bonded. So anything bonded,
Wow.
was just buying and bringing back. And
There's
so
a
that's
couple there. I haven't heard of. Bart, have you heard a couple of those last ones he said?
No.
Yeah, I mean, what's great about them? They're very inexpensive. They're around the same price points as the Heaven Hill and the very old Barton and the old Granddad and all that. Under $20 and phenomenal juice.
Wow.
Connor Strang is saying that we should try Fuji Kai 10-year whiskey. It'll make the peated Swiss whiskey look like the best whiskey we've had. Now, what's the tell us? I haven't heard about New Zealand whiskey. What's what are we looking at there?
So Anchor Distilling obviously is partnered obviously with Berry Brothers and Rudd, and for their importing, and they were bringing in. They found some, I guess you could call them orphan barrels for what they were. Some of these whiskeys are 18, 20, 22 years old. I really didn't realize they were making whiskey back then in Scotland, or excuse me, not Scotland, New Zealand. They're being brought in super small allocations here to the United States. I'm not even sure what I'm going to receive mine, if any. I'm hoping to receive it here in 2018. But they're not inexpensive. They're going to be priced up there well above $100 per bottle of this stuff or more. But I'm intrigued by what whiskey tastes like from New Zealand.
Well, there's great stuff coming out of Australia in Tasmania. We've had some of the Sullivan's Cove.
Oh yeah, man. That's phenomenal whiskey. If you can get your hands on bottles, I suggest get it here. They're with a super small wine wholesaler here in Kansas. Not sure why, but I never see it out there, so we probably don't even get any allocation in Kansas anymore.
See, I was lucky. I can't remember the name of the importing company, but I was in Pittsburgh, and Raj is one of the Whiskey Raj, and he took me to a real nice Pittsburgh whiskey bar where I was able to even try their the French oak version, which was delicious. I think it was a 2014, wasn't it? If I remember right. So he told me, he said he was trying to sell it, couldn't, and then it got Whiskey of the Year in Murray's Bible, and bam, it just blew off the shelves.
It's funny how that happens. That happened with Old Pulteney, the 21 year. We couldn't get rid of the stuff. We couldn't give it away, and all of a sudden Whiskey of the Year, and then we can't even keep it in stock.
Yep. Guy's a genius, putting out the book every year, putting out the Bible, calling it the Bible.
Yeah.
Well, that's exactly what Raj said about Sullivan's Cove.
Exactly. Yeah, he said he couldn't get rid of it. And when we were in there, he asked the owner of the bar we went to. He said, "Hey, you got any? I don't see your French oak." And he said, "Oh, I've got one bottle left, but it's not in view." And he said, "You mind bringing it out?" He said, "Sure." So,
someone is saying we need something about bourbon and bakers or something.
Oh, in Manhattan. Yep.
What is that?
It's a little whiskey bar. They do Southern style tapas with bourbon in Manhattan. There, it's a really good place. I frequent that. I'm there probably 2-3 times a month. I'll actually be there next Tuesday night doing a Joseph Magnus event there. So for $30, you get to try the regular Magnus, the Murray Hill cigar blend, and then we've got a fourth surprise pour as well. But they're really into whiskey there in Manhattan. It's one of my growing accounts there that does extremely well. Everybody works there super passionate about whiskey.
Very cool.
We'll have to meet up. We'll have to meet you there sometime.
And speaking of Magnus, we are going up. We're doing Magnus single barrels we've got a couple of those allocated across Kansas, and we're headed up there to DC in January to select a couple barrels and put them into a pick the barrel finish. So between a cognac, Armagnac, or sherry finish, and then bring them back and sell them for, I think they're going to be $115, $120 a bottle. So that's one that I can let the cat out of the bag on those single barrel Magnus you're going to see.
Now, those would probably be really nice. We did, well, fact is, we did a review of the cigar malt and the regular Joseph Magnus together, and Nancy Fraley actually reached out to us and talked to us a little bit. She's the master blender, or kind of master.
Yeah.
She's our blender for hire.
Yeah.
Yeah, she gets to select the honey barrels at MGP. They're all 11-year-old bourbon barrels, so that's quite the gig if you get to go and hand select all your MGP barrels, the honey barrels that they want.
Yeah.
We'll have to make a really good bourbon out of it.
Yeah, we've almost had her on the show, and she's so busy.
Yeah.
So. All right, well, fill us in. Everybody's clamoring for, I'm sure, for more information on this 3-tiered system. We get a lot of questions from people in England and even Canada because liquor is run differently there than it is in the States.
Yeah, so here in Kansas, and I'll speak for what our state is because it's a little different versus other states, is obviously the product, say from a distillery, goes to an importing company. Say we'll use Anchor Distilling as an example. It goes to them, then so they're paying taxes on the importing of that, and then so we actually, since we're partnered with them in a franchise state, which meaning in Kansas, they can only, once we're partnered with them, they sign a franchise agreement. It's pretty much a marriage for life at that point. It's not like, it's very tough to get out of a franchise agreement and go to somebody else. So, which means we're the only one that can sell that in the state versus say other states are different. So we'll buy the stuff from them. We bring it in and then we sell it to the liquor store at that point. There's an extra tier that I haven't mentioned, you might not know, is that the bars, restaurants in Kansas can't buy it directly from us. They actually have to buy it from a liquor store. So there's an extra tier that goes on there. So it actually gets taxed another time for a bar restaurant. And then obviously when they sell it, they have to pay their drink tax on it as well. So it's pretty much in Kansas, it's known as the four tier system here for it. So we got an extra layer of tier for that as well. So, which makes things extremely difficult to get bars, restaurants to carry this stuff because I can't just go in and directly sell it to them, punch it in my iPad and send it. We've got to work with the liquor store and have them deliver it to the bar or restaurant. So definitely there's a handful of states out there. Texas is a state that's just like us as well. There's some other states like Missouri where the distributors can go into the bars, restaurants and just send it right directly to them. So there's not an extra tier for that matter. So, but you look at taxation, every level it goes through gets taxed. And I think they're looking at a bottle of bourbon. Price of a bottle of bourbon on a shelf, I think it's like 60 to 70% of what you pay is actually to the taxation throughout the different levels that hits for that matter. Yeah.
So the bars, though, I mean, you could, if they were saved one of those tiers, I mean, they could actually, it could save bars a lot of money because they could buy directly from you at a lower cost.
Yeah. And the markup, I really can't speak for a lot of markets, but the market's anywhere from they're paying 1%, 3%, 5%, 10% above cost. Very rarely are they paying full 28, 30% full retail. They've got a reduced cost plus the 8% of whatever the enforcement tax is on top of that. So it's not like they're paying what we pay off the shelf pricing for this stuff.
Gotcha.
Now, I didn't realize this happened, and maybe this is just Kansas as well, because I was talking to Auburn Spirits. When we're looking for Buffalo Trace Antique Collection, and they're like, well, Stag comes from this distributor and Weller's comes from this other distributor, even though they're both Buffalo Trace, this distillery, different distributors are responsible for them.
Yeah. With that portfolio from Sazerac's the parent company for Buffalo Trace, and they have multiple brands under the Sazerac umbrella. That is split house here in Kansas, where Southern Glaciers has the Buffalo Trace stuff, Blanton's, Elmer T. Lee. But out of that, our company has Eagle Rare, Old Charter, some of the other stuff that's there. They've got Weller, obviously, and Pappy. And then we have the three of the antique collection they have too. So yeah, it's different. The Jim Beam portfolio, Beam Suntory portfolio, it's split as well. So when you get allocated stuff through them, they've got the Maker's Mark Bourbon side, and we've got the Beam Small Batch side of it as well. So it's a little different in Kansas that way too, which makes it tough. If we've got good relationships with liquor stores and they're doing well for our stuff, they'll get antique collection, but it may not work out for the Glacier side of the antique collection. They may not get the William LaRue Weller or the Thomas Handy rye as well. So it's a different game here for that matter.
Is that similar to other states, or is Kansas odd in that way?
I think there's other states where there's split houses like that, or you know, where Sazerac is split. I'm not entirely 100% sure on that.
Yeah.
I just know it becomes a big headache here in Kansas to obviously deal with allocated bourbons. You know, I remember buying these things directly off the shelf in 2006, 2007, 2008. You know, I built a big collection of antique collection because they made it to the shelf.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, there's raffles, there's long lines, there's, you know, they go to the best customers, and, you know, and before I could just walk in, I remember walking into an account in Topeka, Kansas, in about 2009, buying an entire case of Four Roses limited edition small batch, and it had 6 bottles sitting there, and just bought the entire case, you know. So those days are long gone, you know, with all the raffles and stuff that are going on, and the popularity of the collectible bourbons.
Not to get into specifics, but I mean, how much has Standard's portfolio increased, say, in the last 5 years because of the bourbon boom, the whiskey boom? I mean, how much? I know you can't give specifics or anything like that, but have you seen a 50% increase, 100% increase?
I mean, as far as like SKUs of brands we brought in with just whiskey, whether it's Irish whiskey, Scotch whiskey, I mean, it's over doubled from what we had, where we were saying, you know, 5 years ago, maybe even 4 years ago.
Wow.
Just the amount of, obviously, the next category that keeps sending samples is the Irish category. I mean, there's 20-some distilleries that are opening over the next year or so in Ireland, and everybody's got samples and they're shipping them out. And you know, obviously in the state, we know who the king is with Jameson, but there's all these other Irish whiskeys that are wonderful. So that's a category that's blowing up. Obviously, 5-6 years ago, our company didn't have any of the Japanese stuff or Kavalan stuff from Taiwan. So, you know, and obviously all the single malt stuff that we're bringing in, and all the bourbons and things that are arriving, and all the craft whiskey phenomenon that's happening too. So it's well over double our portfolio of whiskey.
Beautiful. We're in good times.
Absolutely.
I got to help Fretless out here real quick. He's telling me to move my camera lens. He doesn't want it to fall off.
Oh, he's worried about that. That is an expensive lens.
What do you got, Bart? You got any questions? I've thrown a couple out there, and I can tell I'm cutting you off.
No, you're good. I'm learning, and I'm intrigued by your blue stapler.
Remove that too. I don't want that to fall off.
Yes, yeah, don't let that fall off. The lens never caught my eye, but I was like, really? I've never seen Scott's blue stapler.
I don't even know why that was out there.
Oh my.
Okay, well let's talk about all the Kansas City Royal pictures on social.
Oh, yes.
You got it in there. You got special access, or you just attending spring camp?
This will be my, I think, 11th straight year going to spring training in Arizona. I obviously grew up a Royals fan, and I remember Mom showed me pics of when I was 4 or 5 years old, running around in Royal stuff, and I constantly wear Royal stuff, but I just became a big fan. But yeah, it was about 11 years ago. Me and somebody decided to take a trip down there. He had some family that lived there, and we did it over Friday to Sunday, and we got back that Monday morning. We were like, man, that wasn't long enough. But I go down there every year. It gets longer every time I go down. I think this year, I'm down there for 9 or 10 days this year. And obviously going to the games. I've been following them through the losing seasons when they lost 100 games or whatever, through the good times of the World Series. But now, obviously, I try to set as close to home plate and the crown seats as possible to get inside access to everything there. So
there you go.
Yeah, it's been a fun ride. You know, especially down there. Even though I noticed in Arizona when I go there, I don't think they don't drink a whole lot of whiskey in Arizona, so it's very tough to try to find a whiskey bar or go to the liquor store to find whiskey. Obviously, it's a lot more agave spirits and clear spirits. Obviously, in the hot temperatures and stuff they have there. So, a lot of times I like to bring my own whiskey with me to get me through a week down there.
There might be a lot of dusty bottles on the shelves down there. We got to do a road trip.
Yeah, it sounds like a dummy road trip.
Good point. I might actually have to drive around the valley down the east and west valley just to try to search out and see if there's some dusty bottles that people overlook down there.
It got me in right off the bat. I was thinking dusty bottle. I see a dive liquor store and I'm thinking, I bet you there's something in there for $60 that everybody thinks is too expensive.
Yeah.
Wonderful. No, I'm good.
Show off the hat real quick. The Scotch for Dummies is asking about the hat there, Bart. They can see it.
All right, I'll bring it in and I'll talk here. I kind of surprised Scott. I wanted to do something. We're going to call this the Scotch God. It's our own little hat logo there. It's a Spartan helmet, but the nose piece is actually a Glencairn, if you can see it there.
Yeah.
And it's got a little bit of the blue Braveheart kind of running through there. A thin blue line that kind of rolls right through the dummy. So cool stuff. But yeah, we're working on. Well, Scott, you didn't like the quality of this particular hat. You thought the brim was a little thin, right?
I just wanted to see what else I had to offer, and then the type font on it we weren't too happy with. We're still refining it.
Yeah, they kind of had a messed up type font. Then I grabbed one that had these little. Like a goldish kind of brim thing, and it was horrible. Scott was like, what the hell? Don't bring this crap in here. So pretty soon we'll have it locked down, and we'll have I think we're going to go with Scotch God on the side over here maybe or something. So kind of stay with our phrases. But yeah, I surprised our on-air talent, Shakes Pennington, Cousin Shane, our Whiskey Scout. Everybody kind of got a little Christmas gift that I surprised. And Scott got one. So, but we'll see. So far, well received. A little bit different.
Well, we are at the hour mark. Bart, we're going to have to wrap it up. Bart's got to go pick up his wife at the airport. Mm-hmm. Adam, thank you very much for coming and joining us.
Yeah,
absolutely. Thanks for having me here. I enjoyed it. Got to drink some really good whiskey with you guys. So anytime.
We will have to meet up when Dawn comes back to town, or maybe. Well, we've talked about doing a whiskey run up to Kansas City sometime, and maybe hitting Rieger's. Go hit Rieger's distillery, something like that. Do a little video shoot. So,
dude, you guys got to stop by at Lawrence John Brown Underground. They're big fans of you guys as well.
Good.
Excellent. Definitely. Yeah, we're talking about doing a guy's road trip when we'll probably have Shakes Pennington, the guitarist, and Cousin Shane in tow.
Well, if you get up there, let me know. We have Restless Spirits. It's one of our in-house where they Irish whiskey finished off here in the United States, and they have a couple different whiskeys up there as well. North KC, not too far from Hop, Skip, and Jump across the road.
They did the Sons of Aaron.
Yeah, Sons of Aaron. They just released the 15-year as well. That there's some bottles in Wichita, that one as well. And then they've got the Stonebreaker as well. So if you come up there, we can set you up with that one as well.
Well, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, we may need to make that the focus.
Well, yeah, we're looking at January sometime, possibly. Okay. We'll shoot you an email.
Yep.
Cool. All right. Well, Scotch it, you Scotch gods.
No, I wasn't ready.
Oh, sorry.
Thanks, Adam. Cilantro, Dummies.
Cilantro. See you, Adam.
Cheers.
Hang on.